So welcome everybody to the Wednesday, April 26th meeting of the Hadley Select Board. We have a little bit of regular business to take care of before we go into the annual town meeting warrant review. This won't take too much time at all. But at a previous meeting on April 13th, we gave notice under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 166, Section 22, that we would be holding a public hearing this evening on the proposed installation of a utility pole belonging to Verizon New England on Hockenham Road in Hadley. So David, can you give us an update on that?
Certainly. So we sent this, there are 4 poles that are being proposed to be located on Hockenham Road. This is in association with a project at Hampshire College for the installation of solar panels. The Public Safety and Public Works have both reviewed the proposal and have no objection. Are there any comments from the public? Bring it to a vote. It's unanimous. All right, on to the show.
Okay, so the primary point of this evening, this is the second time, at least in recent history, that we've done a preview for the town meeting warrant. So we're gathered here tonight for that purpose. We're going to do a run-through of the warrant articles that will be presented to town meeting on May 4th. So first of all, I want to welcome everybody who's here this evening and also those who are watching from home. And a big thank you to all of our municipal employees, volunteers, who work so hard to put these town meetings together. There's an awful lot of work, as you can imagine, that goes into each and every town meeting. And also tonight, specifically to thank our school maintenance personnel and Hadley Media, who's covering this for us. Just a reminder, for those of you who didn't attend the last kind of preview, the intent of the forum this evening is the Select Board's intention to provide voters with an overview and a context for the annual town meeting. We want to make sure that the voters' understanding of individual warrant articles is improved in advance of them actually coming to vote. And we want to offer voters an opportunity to ask questions. The forum is not intended to take a vote, favorable or unfavorable. It's not intended to provide any group or individual the opportunity to advocate for a particular article or to speak against an article. Again, what we're looking for here is clarity around these articles. So please refer to the public forum handout for rules and procedures that are available. And David, is that available on the town website as well? Okay, so we'll put that up on the town website for those of you who are at home watching, so you can have that in advance of town meeting. And most importantly, please attend our annual town meeting, which is being held on Thursday, May 4th at 7 o'clock right here at Hopkins Academy. Okay, so with that as background, just wanted to give you a quick overview, again, kind of a little bit of context going into annual town meeting. There are some challenges that we have been facing in the budget process in particular. One of them being the use of free cash to balance the budget. As some of you know, we've been trying diligently, working with our finance committee to reduce our reliance on free cash. And just this past year, the Select Board did pass a policy that would limit the amount of free cash so that we could never use so much that it was actually drawn down to zero. And I think we put a floor of $75,000 on that. The other thing that we're trying to do is systematically reduce the amount of free cash used to balance the budget. Several years ago, we used several $100,000 of free cash. And you'll see that when the budget's presented to you, we're not using nearly that much any longer. Again, hopefully going to zero at some point. Another challenge that we've been facing is constrained revenue. Again, it's been widely promoted and reported upon that we are suffering from the Berkshire gas moratorium that has stunted our growth along the Route 9 corridor in particular. And we have businesses who are looking to open up or to expand, and they're unable to do so because of the gas moratorium. We have been working diligently with Berkshire Gas, off camera, working with some of our developers and other interested individuals, and working in concert with the town of Amherst to see if we can find ways for any sort of temporary relief. At this point, it's very clear to us that a long-term solution at the earliest we won't see until probably 2019, if not 2020. So in order for us to try to find some sort of mitigating factors, that they're going to be handled on a kind of a first come, one-off basis. And again, we're hopeful that Berkshire Gas is getting creative. They've shown some willingness to do so, but right now we are suffering from that constrained revenue. Another challenge that we're facing is balancing the departmental services needs within the confines of Proposition 2.5. And I know that that's something that's not music to people's ears, but we are trying to address public safety staffing, information technology infrastructure. We have significant capital needs. We have a lack of human resource department at Town Hall and a lack of management for the information technology needs. All of these things that, quite frankly, it's a miracle that we get, our municipal employees get done what they do with the lack of resources available to them to bring them into this century. So that's definitely a challenge that we're facing. I would like to say on a positive note that the Select Board's really pleased to be working with the new Finance Committee, kind of a newly composed Finance Committee. They're working extremely hard in advance of town meeting, really coming up to speed quickly, asking excellent questions. And I believe even just next week alone, they have 3 meetings scheduled. So that's going very well, and we're very appreciative of their efforts, as I'm sure you will be. We're also quite conscious of the fact that back in January, several articles were approved that were capital borrowing articles with an impact on property taxes. So, you'll hear us talking about staffing needs and public safety and the like when we're talking about the budget, but please understand we are well aware of the fact that you're already looking at a property tax increase. But again, that's something that needs to be taken into account as we roll forward. We also haven't looked at water and sewer rates in quite a while. That's up for review. So I guess the point being there's an awful lot going on. And we actually don't have a budget to present this evening. We will talk about it, but we're coming very close to town meeting to have something to put in front of you. So I'm sure many of you have questions about that, so feel free to reach out to your select board members or finance committee or our town administrator if you have any questions on that front. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to David Nixon to start going through the warrant articles.
Thank you, Molly. Just want to pause. Does anybody have any questions for Molly before I get into the nitty-gritty of the warrant? So we have a warrant. It's been posted. It's on the website. It's posted around town. There are copies available here. It consists of 25 articles. The first order of business at the town meeting will be the consent agenda. We've identified, and when I say we, we're talking about the Finance Committee, the moderator, and the Select Board. We've identified 5 articles that are housekeeping, administrative, they generate no controversy, don't require any kind of debate. So we propose, in order to streamline the town meeting and get to the really interesting stuff, that we place these 5 articles on the consent agenda. And those 5 articles are Article 1, a housekeeping article to accept and expend grants so that every time we get a grant, we don't have to come back and hold another town meeting to do so. So that's straightforward. The second one is required by law that we have to accept in order to expend our Chapter 90 money. This is money for roads and bridges that we receive from the state every year. And for this fiscal year, we're going to get $369,000 from the state. That's down a little bit, and we need that money in order to keep your roads in good shape. Article 3 is a housekeeping article. This gives the treasurer, with the permission of the select board, the authority to borrow on a temporary basis, and when we say temporary, less than 1 fiscal year, in case there's a cash flow shortage at Town Hall in order to meet our bills. This has never happened, but it's always helpful to have this kind of authority approved by town meeting. The fourth article rather, is Article 7, and this is funds to be transferred from the water reserves into a special water stabilization account in order to start building a kitty towards the eventual replacement of the membranes at the water treatment plant. Those membranes have a 10-year lifespan. We estimate that in 10 years we're going to have to raise $260,000 in order to make those replacements. So if we put away $26,000 every year, then we can, in 10 years' time, when the use life of those membranes is up, we'll be able to replace them without an impact upon the tax, on either the tax rate or the water rates. So, and then the final one is an administrative article, number 15, for the CPA, the Community Preservation Act. They have to set aside a certain amount of money for open space, for historic building preservation, and for affordable housing. And they also have to raise money for their administrative costs, legal fees, consumable supplies, and they're doing a spending plan this year. So we think these 5 articles are housekeeping, administrative in purpose, and so we've asked that you can consent to addressing this in one vote rather than 5. If there's any objection of any kind, then the article that is objected to gets taken out of the consent agenda, placed back into the warrant, and is addressed properly as any other warrant article would be. I'm going to pause here for a moment. Any questions about the consent agenda? All right, moving right along, Article 4. This is an article that's required every year at the annual town meeting. This sets up our revolving funds. We have 8 revolving funds that whereby the income that we receive from these activities goes around to providing the services so that we don't have to put this on the tax rate. We have burial expenses, so income for internment fees go to covering the costs of burials at the cemeteries. Our electrical inspection fees cover the cost of our electrical inspector, as well as a 10% administrative fee. Payments for recyclables, we owe money to every year to our contracted vendor for recycling, and so money that we receive from the state for our recycling efforts is paid back to the people who actually do the work, again, without impact upon the tax rate. Tax title administration, this is something that we implemented last year for the first time, and for those people who don't pay their taxes, it seems unfair that we would burden the taxpayers for our costs of administering the collection process for getting those back taxes. Dog control expenses associated with police department activities for lost dogs or dog rescues. Unfortunately, people leave dogs in cars during the summertime, particularly at the malls, and so just a shout out to everybody that don't do that. That doesn't work out so hot for the dog. We're renting the Russell School out to the contractor for the Route 9 project. That project is winding up, but it won't be done until September. So in order to pay for the cost of maintaining that building for a renter, we've added this revolving fund there. Our sealer and weights and measures program, we contract through the city of Northampton for sealer of weights and measures, so the fees that are paid to cover that service. And then finally, Park and Recreation has a revolving fund in order to support their programs without an impact upon the taxes. Article 5. Again, this is a housekeeping article. We debated as to whether this should go onto the consent agenda. Last year it did. but it's complex enough that we're likely to get questions, so we kept it off the consent agenda. This is basically a housekeeping article. It does three things. First of all, we have a outstanding balance that needs to be addressed for the Lorana Lane sewer project. We did some accounting, and there was an error there, and so this addresses that error. There's no impact upon sewer rates or the cost of the project or on taxes for this. This is strictly an accounting issue. The other one is to clean up old balances left in the articles where we did a direct appropriation. These projects are now completed, and the balances are it's still in the articles, and they're unproductive. So we're going to return those monies back to the original funding source. So if the money came from capital stabilization, it goes back to capital stabilization, similarly for water reserves or sewer reserves. And again, this cleans up old balances and makes that money available for other productive purposes. And then the third one is to amend old borrowing authorizations where the project has been approved, the borrowing has been approved, but we didn't need as much money as we thought that we would need. And so the leftover sums are still reported to the Massachusetts Department of Revenue annually, as well as the SEC. It's an administrative burden, and it ties up borrowing capacity that could be used elsewhere. So Article 5 would clean up all of those. There'd be no impact upon taxes, on sewer rates or water rates for any of these three things here. And do we have somebody from Finance Committee to address the omnibus budget? Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Hi, I'm Marjorie Townsend, a member of the Historical Commission, and the article STM 2001, those funds weren't used in the past, but are going to be needed now because all of the archival materials, documents, museum things that were upstairs in the library building were moved from there. The library said they needed the space, but without much ado, no cleaning, no planning, everything was moved just as a storage spot to the Historical Society building on Middle Street. And now we would like to have those funds to be able to clean and order out those materials that were all moved out from the upstairs in the library.
Okay, so we reached out to the Historic Commission about this particular article. We didn't hear back from you, so we thought that this was an unused article. It dates back to 2001. I have no objection removing this from this particular article if we're going to be using those funds, if you
Yeah,
if you
in the
could use
past
them.
we didn't need them, and now we do.
That'll be fine. I have no objection to that.
Okay. Thank you. No, the Historical Commission. The materials. Yes, yes. Because the materials belong to the town. We're just using the Historical Society, which is private, as a storage spot.
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll rewrite the motion so that we will delete that particular reference, and we'll address it at that time. All right. Well, seeing as nobody here is from the Finance Committee, I'm going to just talk a little bit. Oh, there you are. Come on up. That's fine. That's fine. All right, so the omnibus budget is covered by Article 6. It'll be a lengthy presentation from the Finance Committee. We'll go through each and every department and make a recommendation. The Finance Committee will make a recommendation for funding for each department. That budget is still under review right now. It's it's still a moving target. The Finance Committee is working very hard. They had a long meeting last night. They're going to be meeting 3 times next week in order to wrestle this to the ground. But in general, if you want to see what the budget looks like as I proposed it, it's on the town website at www.hadleyma.org. And under the town administrator page, there is the proposed budget for FY18, the next fiscal year. And it's a lengthy document. It has a lot of information about each department. So that would be a good resource for people who have any questions about where the budget is right now and what it may mean and what are the priorities that we're trying to achieve this year. But in general, the significant features of the budget are that the Select Board requested that each department submit a level service budget. That is to say that what do they need in order to keep the same level of services going from one fiscal year to the next. But they wanted to enhance and continue to enhance public safety, particularly the fire department, and we're working very hard in order to come up with a viable plan for staffing as well as funding that staffing, and that'll be the discussion for the next week. They wanted an enhanced building maintenance program, enhanced both in terms of the amount of money available for building maintenance, but also consolidation of many, many different parts of the building maintenance that were scattered over a lot of budgets into one single budget under the direction of the Department of Public Works. And then the Select Board adopted a new free cash policy back in December, and they wanted to implement the free cash policy in order to reduce our reliance on free cash for recurring expenses within the omnibus budget. So stay tuned, more to see, more to hear about. Article 8 would be the capital article. Mr. Devine. Any questions?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Again, thanks for joining us this evening. Just one thing about Article number 7, which was on the consent agenda. This year we did replace the filters in our filtration system, so it was the first time that it was done. We're starting the new process going forward with it. Just a little bit of a follow-up to it. I know our system's been in line for 10 years. We replaced them this year. We're going towards the next set. Capital 8 is, Article number 8 has to do with our capital spending this year, and sometimes it's far more important to read the last line than it is to read the first line. So the last line says there will be no impact on taxes. Now let's get to the meat and potatoes. The town hall will be, the paving of the lot at the town hall is trying to be accomplished this year through Article number 8. So it's moved that the town transfer $26,000 to reappropriate where available funds from Article 10 of the May 2012 meeting. We're going to take that money, the $26,000, and we're going to couple that with the First Church is also has an interest in the parking lot. They actually own half the parking lot, so $26,000 will be the town commitment to take care of the parking lot. The First Church has appropriated $26,000 that they've already gone through their committees to approve, and we're looking at getting the town hall driveway taken care of this year. The second project is going to be to raise money for Hadley Media. Again, there's no impact to your taxes. The number for this is going to be $69,915. That's money that actually is collected via the bill from Charter, and it's money that's available specifically for facilities and equipment, and their Hadley Media is looking to spend that and looking for your support to spend it. Again, it's money that's already been collected and accepted and is waiting for the appropriation to be spent. Thank you. I'm going to multitask. Article number 9. Article number 9 has to do with our long-range implementation committee that was established when we adopted the long-range plan in 2005. The long-range implementation committee has been inactive since 2014. The planning board has now gone through and has redone our long-range plan, and under Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 81D, they are now responsible for the implementation of that plan. So there's no longer a need to have a long-range implementation committee, and we're looking to eliminate that at this point in time. Questions? Okay, Article number 10. You want to speak to it?
One thing I did forget to mention is the fact that there are only 3 of us here this evening. Probably many of you either have a family member or somebody, a close friend who seems to have succumbed to something this spring with a variety of illnesses going around town. So unfortunately, we have 2 select board members who very much wanted to be here this evening, but both of them are just dealing with feeling a little bit better, so hopefully they'll be better soon. But I did want to acknowledge that. So Article 10, the Hampshire Council of Governments. This is effectively a placeholder article right now. It was requested by one of our board members, who's the representative to the Hampshire Council of Governments, and I believe that they have a meeting coming up this week, and it was his request that we put a placeholder article on the annual town meeting warrant to determine whether or not we might be interested in withdrawing our membership from the Hampshire Council of Governments. That's not a discussion that the board has had at this point. They do have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow night, and I believe that Donald wanted to report back on the contents of that meeting so we can have a discussion next Wednesday at our May 3rd meeting to see if this is something that we do want to put in front of town meeting. Any questions on that?
Article number 11, move that the town accept the provision of Mass General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5K, establishing a senior tax work-off program for fiscal year 2018. This was brought to us by Susan Travisano, our senior person there taking care of our senior center. And it's a great thing that we have being brought forward before us today, and we thank her for bringing that to us. This article provides tax relief fund for the Hadley seniors and provides the town with reliable, talented, and dedicated volunteers to perform work that adds value to the community. Seniors often live on fixed income, and a tax abatement program would help the seniors' finances, contributions to the public good. Help keep our seniors living in their homes and promote Hadley as an age-friendly community. Hadley's senior population is highly educated and possesses a wide range of skills that would enhance the operational performance of many of our departments. The town is balancing the needs of the public services while controlling the personnel cost. The senior tax work-off program may offer a way to achieve both goals. Susan, I don't know if you wanted to add to this conversation or if you're waiting for town meeting floor for your big speech. Okay, I think we're going to work on trying to understand what the needs are of the community, and then once we find out the needs of the community, we'll be understanding a little more as to how much the benefit will be and how much we'll be offering to the seniors for that benefit. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. Article 12 is to see if the town will vote to authorize Select Board to negotiate and enter into an agreement for payment in lieu of taxes pilot program pursuant to the provisions of MGL Chapter 59 or any other authority between the town and Nexamp. This is a negotiating a payment in lieu of taxes agreement with Solar Field Installer, who is associated with Nexamp and Company. The approximately 3 megawatt solar field will be built near the Hampshire Mall. As part of financing of this project, the developer for Nexamp has approached the town of Hadley for this pilot agreement. In the past, the town has offered a base payment per megawatt base payment based on market conditions with 2% annual escalator increase. Over 20 years, this should bring in more money than straightforward taxation. The benefit to the developer is that they have a predictable cash outlay plan. This is the sixth such solar pilot agreement that we have implemented in the town of Hadley. Any questions? Article 13 is also a pilot program also. The town is negotiating a payment in lieu of taxes agreement with Solar Field Installer, who is associated again with Nexamp and Company. The approximately 2 megawatt solar field will be built off South Maple Street. As part of the financing of this project, again, the developer for Nexamp has approached the town for the pilot agreement. And it'll be good for over 20 years and bring in taxation for us to the benefit of the town and also to the solar people. The benefit to the developers is that they have a predictable cash outlay again. And of course, people have a right to come to town meeting and speak on this if they choose to. This would make the 7th on Article 13, so that's quite a number of solar projects that we have in town, and it is has been to our benefit.
Article 14. So the November election brought a number of surprises to us. We had greater than 80% of Hadley's voters turn out that time, so way to go. 54% of the voters in Hadley approved the recreational marijuana ballot question. So now we have this issue in front of us. There are 2 articles relating to recreational marijuana on this warrant. The first one, the new law allows the town of Hadley to adopt a 2% sales tax on the sales of recreational marijuana under the new law. So this has to be voted by town meeting, and so that's what we're proposing. That we think that there's going to be an impact. There's going to be demand for heightened services, possibly for public safety, certainly for other departments. So in order to mitigate that impact, I recommend that we adopt this sales tax. And just to provide some sort of context, we have a meals tax in town. That meals tax is 0.75%, so 2% sales tax on recreational marijuana should be a substantial amount of money. We don't know how much, but we're anticipating that it will be a lot. Okay, Article 15, as we said before, is on the consent agenda, so we would go to Article 16. Hampshire Council of Governments approached the Hadley CPA Committee and asked for $44,000 to help renovate the historic courthouse in Northampton. CPA Committee said we'll allow $10,000 to come to town meeting floor. So Obviously, there's some debate if you look at the recommendations of both the Select Board and the Finance Committee. So this is an article that we expect to engender some debate. But yes, we would be taking money from Hadley and donating it to a property in Northampton. Sure.
The Select Board voted 4-1 against this article. We've seen that there's been some funding, which they're talking about redoing the courthouse in the near future anyways, and I don't think we necessarily want to be, and I'm not, just trying to let people understand why I voted against it. That with the money that's coming forward, it looks like the courthouse is going to be renovated anyways, and I think that's why we all voted against it.
Article 17. Smith Charities, also of Northampton, approached the CPA committee and asked for $500 contribution to help fund a study of their brownstone off of Bridge Street in Northampton. They know that they have to go through a number of renovations and restoration there, but they need a study conducted first. So they've asked the local town, this town, for $500 for that purpose. Now, the Smith Charities provides a lot of money to the town of Hadley in the form of gifts and donations and scholarships. So there is debate on this article, but they're in a situation where their investment income is simply not keeping up with their capital needs over in Northampton. So they're asking the member towns for some support. Okay, so the next four articles address open space preservation. Now, a late-breaking development has allowed us to be able to tell you that we're going to pass over two of these articles. The Heron property has closed, and therefore we do not need Articles 19 or 21. And so $9,000 of Hadley money will not be used, and we'll pass over these articles. The remaining parcels of land amounts to 107 acres off of South Maple Street, belonging to the West family, and they're asking for a total of $50,000 to place that farmland in permanent protection under the agricultural preservation restriction. The state will kick in 90% of the development rights values for that property. The town is asked to contribute 10%, and our 10% would be $50,000. We would take that from two pots of money, one from the Community Preservation Act Open Space Fund, money that's already set aside for that purpose, and then there's a fund that has about $100,000 in it called the Transfer of Development Rights Fund, which would supply the other $25,000. There'd be no impact upon taxes for this article preserving the 107. This is what you get when you work with budgets that have big numbers in it. You always want us to add 1,000 or 1,000,000 to it. 107 acres off of South Maple Street.
Okay, then the next few articles, Articles 22, 23, and 24, are actually being put forth by the Planning Board. Unfortunately, our Planning Board members weren't able to be with us this evening, but did call this afternoon with their talking points. So Articles 22 and 24 are more of a housekeeping item. What they're trying to do is conform the current language with, line it up with the new state language. So they're going to be tailoring, I think it's a 2-year time frame currently, and the new law requires a 3-year time frame. So again, I believe they'll be presenting those two articles as housekeeping items. Article 23, which is zoning article related to recreational marijuana moratorium. The state, I don't think is coming out with information as quickly as anticipated. So again, I believe the planning board is going to be asking for the town to agree with a delay on solidifying the town language until there's further information from the state and exactly what direction they're heading on this. And then the planning board will be making a recommendation at a future date, whether that's the fall town meeting or actually next year's annual town meeting, we don't know yet. And they will speak to that themselves that evening.
So the final article, Article 25, is submitted by petition. It's a non-binding resolution of the town, and it addresses concerns people have about campaign financing in state and federal elections. I did invite the petitioner to attend tonight's meeting. I don't know if they're here tonight or anybody representing the petition. It's a great thing in American democracy that people have the right of redress and petition to their legislative bodies, and so this article is presented exactly as it was written, made no editorial changes of any kind. So this is the straight language, and we'll have a debate on town meeting floor. Again, this is a non-binding resolution of the town.
And once we get through all of that, at that point, the moderator will call for a motion to adjourn town meeting. So, as you can see, I don't think we have as many articles as we've had sometimes in years past. I'm sure that the budget article will provoke some discussion. That usually is the one that takes the most time. Again, our point this evening is to make people aware of what articles will be discussed on town meeting on May 4th, 7 o'clock, right here at Hopkins Academy. And also to encourage folks, especially those of you who may be watching from home, now that you're a little bit more aware of what we're going to be talking about that night, to reach out. I wouldn't necessarily suggest to your neighbor, but perhaps people either on the select board or people at town hall who know the substance of these articles, so that you can kind of separate fact from fiction or make sure you understand before you walk into town meeting exactly what the language means. Again, we're trying to promote informed decision making. So if you choose to have more information, by all means. Jerry, what's your cell phone number? No, please reach out to, again, anybody on the select board, town hall, your municipal employees, and we'll make sure that we get accurate information back to you. Okay. Jerry, Joyce, anything else this evening?
No, we just encourage everybody to come and need your help and support for that.
Right, so again, 7 o'clock, May 4th, right here at Hopkins Academy. And unless there are any further questions, David, unless you have anything else? No? Yes, we need at least 100 people, but hopefully we'll have far more than that, because this is, again, the most basic form of democracy, and we're always proud of the fact that Hadley can get through it without any Donnybrooks, with smiles on their faces, people still slapping their neighbors on the back, and hope to continue that long-standing tradition regardless of what's going on elsewhere. Yes, and always the Mothers Club has a good spread in the back, so please bring a few extra shekels with you that evening, and you can help support the Mothers Club as well. Marjorie?
In-town meeting when each person can speak?
That's the town moderator. Right, so the question that was just asked was whether or not there is a limit on how long people can speak at town meeting, and Jerry, our former town moderator, just reminded us that that is the purview of the town moderator. So that will be up to Brian West to determine any speaking length. Right. So what happens sometimes, and people do get confused about this, sometimes you may see a line up at the microphones with people wanting to speak. But again, you know, under the purview of the moderator, if in fact there's no new information being presented, somebody can call a particular item to call it to motion. So, okay. Anything else this evening? If not, again, thank you to Hadley Media. Thank you for everyone for showing up this evening. Thank you to everybody watching at home, and we will see you here on Thursday, May 4th at 7 o'clock. Motion to adjourn? Motion made and seconded. It's the end of our meeting. Good night, everybody.